Welcome back to FM Jeeping. My name is Mark, and today we're going to be installing some Shackle relocation brackets. So a few videos back I had mentioned that I wanted to do Shackle relocation brackets. Now, I was going to go ahead and make these on my own because it looked fairly simple to do. However, I wanted to go with something that I knew was going to work. I reached out to a place called HD Offroad, and they set me up with their bolt-in kit. This is what it looks like. This is pretty heavy duty. So the reason I reached out for HD Offroad is that they offer a 1/4 inch Shackle relocation bracket that bolts into the unibody where the hitch is. Now that's probably one of the better designs because now not only are you just bolting it in to the factory location like some other kits that I've seen, but you're also tying into the unibody, which really really locks these things down. There's less of a chance of something breaking, giving out, bending, and it also adds a little bit more stability. Basically, once I install these, I don't really have to worry about them. If I haven't ripped out the factory thin metal yet, I'm probably not going to do it going forward. So really my whole goal for these brackets is I want a heavy duty solution that's not going to break. It's going to offer a slightly better ride as long as I set up the springs correctly with the right angle on the shackle. I'm also going to get better articulation, and most of all, I'm also going to gain probably about 1 inch of lift if I do this right, which will help clear some big tires that are on their way. But right now, I gotta get FM in the garage. If anybody feels generous, I'm definitely, I think I'm a size 5 car garage with a nice loft above it. I'll take it. Tuck my, whew, much better. We're gonna go ahead and get this started by getting the Jeep up in the air. You wanna get as high as you can safely on jack stands on level ground. The other thing you gotta just remember is if you do not have a impact gun, you wanna crack your lug nuts free before you lift it up in the air, because otherwise you're gonna have a hard time breaking them loose. Okay, so now we got the tires at full droop, which is what we want. I'm gonna go ahead, and you don't necessarily have to take tires off. I'm gonna do it just to give me a little bit more room to work here. So we're gonna go ahead and get the tires off, and we're gonna drop the shackle. And crack this loose. If you've never broken these off, this may not be that easy. But if you've lifted your vehicle before, these are good bolts to put anti-seize on. So I just ran into something that you might encounter, is that my shocks are really limiting my down travel. They're fully drooped, they're fully maxed out. These are made for, I believe, a 6-inch lift. I was at about a 5, and at full droop, I'm really not getting a really good really good travel, at least down travel. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go ahead and install the brackets anyway, as if I have the good shocks. I'm going to take my lower shock mount off, pry that off, so I can install the bracket, and I'm going to order some longer shocks. This is why it's important to kind of make sure you do your upgrades in stride. Now, I originally went with this kit because of the heavy duty build of it, the 1/4 inch thick, but also very much so the reason why I went with these is because they bolt into the unibody where the hitch bolts are. Now I'm going to show you a good reason why that's important. Watch my mount up here if you can. This whole part here is all rusted out. My mount is moving. So this whole thing is pretty much going to be useless. So at least I'll still have these bolts here to mount into, and this will do something. It looks like I'm going to have to reinforce that somehow. Yeah, I gotta do some work back here. So it looks like I'm gonna be cutting, I'll probably cut this part off. I'm gonna have to plate up there. This is supposed to be a simple mod. Under normal circumstances, it is when your leaf spring mount box is in good shape. All right, let's get this shock off. This might be the last time this shock goes on. There we go. Yep, that was limiting my travel big time. That's still good shock though. Let's press on. So we're going to go ahead and press on assembling the relocation brackets as if my leaf spring mount box was sound. All right, so you're going to get a box with all these pieces here. You're going to find 2 of these L brackets, 2 of these U channels, and then the mounting piece here. So what you want to find are these, and what you're going to do is you want to line up the holes. Now you can put the wrong piece in and the holes will not line up if you look like that. You could do the same thing on this side. If you look, the hole will not line up. You want to make sure that this hole lines up just like that. Okay, same thing on this side. Oop. You want to make sure the holes line up. Then you have to figure out what configuration you want for your bracket. I'm going to start with the hard mounted bolts, just like this. I'm going to go ahead and throw a washer and a nut. And do the same right here. Washer. And a nut. Okay. Gonna do that on both sides. Let's see here. I believe it's gonna go like this. Yep. Okay. Okay. So the belief is you're going to go ahead and put this up, mount this, stick this up into the where your factory shackle bolts in. You're going to use the factory bolt, punch that all the way through, and that's going to go ahead and bolt into the factory location. Then these 3 bolts here mount into the unibody. Same thing on this side. Oops, I forgot a washer on that side. So let's go test fit these. I still have to remove the bolts off the unibody, but let's go ahead and test fit these. A few weeks later. So the reason for the jump in time was I went back and repaired all the rusted sheet metal. Here are some of the pictures from that repair. Now we're going to go ahead and resume with the install as we left off. So you can bolt it in the way it was. In fact, if you've kind of noticed already, I've had it bolted in. I'm just taking it out for purposes of showing you the install. But I want to make this thing a little bit more permanent, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw a couple stitch welds here, and there, just to kind of hold that bracket in. Now this is completely optional, especially if you get the bolt-in kit. This is just kind of for my own peace of mind. Now if you've decided to kind of go past this step, and once you've assembled these, I'd go ahead, paint them so they don't rust. So we're gonna go ahead and install the bracket. Now what I did to get this up here is I kind of lifted a little bit on the spring, or pull down, and what you gotta do is kind of sneak it behind the leaf spring here. And then some people have bolts that come through here. I do. So you wanna make sure you kind of pass that. That's for the rear bumper, and this is going to be a very snug fit. So what I like to use is a dead blow hammer to kind of put that in place. So what that's going to do is seat this fairly well. You can see the hole here goes straight through. The bracket lines up, so we're good there. And then we just got to make sure that all the holes line up for the unibody, which they do. So we're gonna go ahead, seat that 100%. I might even put a jack underneath it, push it up all the way, so we can kind of bolt this thing down really snug. So something to keep in mind too, and I learned this through my first install of this. This is the bolt that I used to hold up my gas tank skid and my bumper in place. This was barely thin enough, or barely long enough to catch the threads. Adding this, this plate here. So I went out, grabbed longer bolts. I think I'm using one of these. These are M12 175 by 50 mil. I think that's 2 inches, 2.5. So we should be good. Okay, first one. This is much easier than actually struggling, pushing up on it, trying to extend this, your factory bolts as long as you can. This is way easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to torque up the unibody bolts first, and then push on this. So let's do that now. Oh, that's not coming out. Okay. I'll put a little bit of pressure on this. And then I'm going to snug this bolt down. So there's two 19mm bolts that hold the adjustability part to the actual mount. So I'm going to go ahead, grab my wrench, start tightening. You know what? I might be able to get us there. Okay, good. Nice and tight. So this next part is going to be open to interpretation. No one size fits all for this because of everybody's lift, their leaf springs, the manufacturer. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. Plus, personal preference is going to take an effect. I my original setup right here. You can see kind of where the washer was, and if you can imagine, it pushed it out so much so, if you can see, I was bottoming the shackle on the bracket. So what I'm going to do is go back one more and get myself hopefully right to that 45-degree angle. So everybody is going to be a little bit different. Like I said, I have Rubicon Express 3-inch leaf springs with rusty boomerang shackles. So we'll see if this middle hole gets us to where we need to be. So one thing you're going to want to keep in mind when you do this is that you're most likely going to need longer shocks. Reason being is that this bracket drops your basically your factory mounting location from here down to here, or in my case I had boomerang shackles which put me out here, and now I'm going down a little bit more. So that's going to add a little bit of lift, and when you add lift you minimize the travel of your shock. So I am at the point now where I am at full droop. This is there's nothing supporting my axle. That's it. It's hanging. So what I'm going to have to do to be able to get it to where I can move these springs comfortably is I'm going to need to disconnect my shock and let the axle hang. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Boom. Don't stand underneath that. So now that we got this bracket and everything totally bolted down, nice and tight, I'm gonna go ahead and start installing the shackle. Now this is a boomerang shackle from Rusty's. Originally I had used the bolts supplied by HD Offroad up here in this mount here, just like this. However, and this might just be my application, the Rusty's shackle and this bolt have such a tight tolerance that I had to hammer this through this, and that didn't really feel kosher, didn't feel good. So what we're going to do on this round is we're going to use the factory bolt there. Now HD Offroad did supply extra washers, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and use the washers on the factory bolt. I'm not going to tighten it all the way because I want to put the vehicle on its own weight, then tighten everything. The next fun part is getting this leaf into the shackle. This is why having it loose definitely helps. Some people need to use jacks to do this. Some people can use crowbars. We'll try lifting it. Might makes right, I guess, right? There we go. Cool. Good. All right, like I said, I'm just threading it up, snugging it up with my hand, and we should be good. Now we're gonna go to the other side. Both sides are fairly similar, but there is one difference on the passenger side you do have to keep in mind, is your exhaust is coming out this way. Now I'm going to preface this by saying that originally when I installed this, I had to cut my exhaust. The bolts and the exhaust pipe were just too close. Now I have an aftermarket exhaust, so your mileage may vary. You may need to cut it, you may not. It all depends on where your exhaust rides. Now, I'm also going to preface this by saying I have a kind of custom exhaust hanger that bolts into the same location we are bolting these brackets in, and I'll cover that in a second. So now the bracket is pretty much installed. I left these 2 bolts open because what I have to do is put my exhaust hanger on. Now this exhaust hanger is kind of a pain in the butt. I can't really get a socket on it per se. I mean, I could probably flex it a little bit more, but for the time being, this will work. So you just got to be cognizant of that and know that I think most other exhaust hangers are in this area, and it might affect how this mounts. So we're going to take our bolts and get them started. If I can find my other one. There it is. That one I'm going to go leave a socket on. Let's try. Not my best design, but it works. Now that's all tightened up. Zip this on. Good and tight. So what I might not have covered earlier is that HD cuts different adjustments in for their brackets, I believe. I believe these are to kind of fine tune it. I'm running these with this being the rear one, this one being the front one. Only reason being is because it centers where I believe the spring is going to end up staying. So let's take a look. So. Put that there. I'm going to go ahead and use the extra supplied washers from HD Offroad. Just like that. Oops. If I have the right shackle. Do that right there. One more washer on the other side. I'm going to hand tighten this as far as it'll go. Take the supplied nut. There we go. Ow. Broke the glove. No glove, no love. Just want to snug this up just a little bit. So now that we got everything bolted up, not completely snug down, but bolted up, we're going to go ahead, put the shock back on, and get this thing on its own weight. Now, before I see this in the comments, I know my shocks are bad. When I say bad, they still function fine, but They're definitely too short for my application. Obviously with the new axles coming in, bigger tires, I'm trying not to lift it too much, but I am going to need shocks to match the tires and the axles. So I'm not spending a lot of money keeping this a go. I just need to be able to move this around the yard, in and out of the garage, in case my other vehicle breaks or whatever. But literally, this is just to keep me driving around. Now, this kind of also explains why I feel this thing is being held back. Like when I went on the RTI ramp a few weekends ago, I've flexed a lot better than this, and really it's because of the bigger tires and my shocks. I just ran out of flex. Using a shock as a bump stop or a limiter is not good, because you're going to ultimately destroy the shock. So we have some shopping to do over the winter, but shocks installed. Let's get the tires on. Still not ideal. Now, I'm kind of torn, because if I go back to the other front hole that I originally was in, it's too steep of an angle and I was bottoming out. So I think I might give this a shot, ride around on it, see how it feels, and run it. I think this is probably the best I'm gonna get, at least right now, without modifying it anymore. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten everything up. So I just want to come out and say that I did not get these brackets for free. They were at a discount through HD Offroad, and I just want to say thank you for HD Offroad for pairing with FM Jeeping, the channel, to get me what seems to be a pretty good product at a discounted price. In conclusion, I just want to say thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of the video. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you like the content and you want to see more, I got a little subscribe button down here in the corner. Go ahead and give that a click. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, feedback, go ahead and leave those in the comment section below where they belong, and I'll get back to you on that. And with that being said, thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next one.